Hello, everyone. I'm Miki Tsusaka, BCG's Chief Alumni Officer. I'm delighted to bring you another episode of BCG Alumni Leaders. Today, my very special guest is Amitabh Mall. Amitabh hails from the class of 2001 at BCG, and he was in 3 offices till he graduated in 2021. We overlapped in New York, he was in Mumbai, his last office was in Sydney. After graduating from BCG as a senior partner and managing director, he now is at the very top of Woolworths as the chief analytics officer. He's also managing director of WIC. So today, welcome, Amitabh. Good to see you. Look forward to hearing about your career, your expertise in digital and consumer, how your career has evolved, and much more. So, with that, Amitabh, maybe you can introduce yourself to the audience today and just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got there.
Thank you, Miki. I'm so delighted to be talking to you as someone who I've worked with over the years and deeply admired. So thank you
Thank
for the opportunity today. Just as you've covered some of the basics, but I did join BCG in 2001, 24th May, in fact, 2001, and I left on 26th May 2022. So I made sure that it was exactly 20 and give or take a couple of days. So feel very proud of the time that I have spent at BCG. Lots of learnings and lots of friends that I've made along the way, and delighted to actually have had the opportunity when I left BCG to do something that I've been doing it for 18 months now and quite loving it. I have two roles. I am the Chief Analytics Officer for Woolworths Group, which may not be familiar to everyone, but Woolworths Group is a top 20 retailer globally. We operate in Australia and New Zealand, and we are the largest retailer, or we like to think of it as retail ecosystem, which has gone from being a traditional retailer to a very modern retailer with a lot of technology and adjacent spaces that we are involved in. And I run the data and analytics teams across the whole group, reporting into the group CEO, who happens to be another BCG alum, and where my role is to define how analytics can transform the business and make sure that we are focusing on the right priorities and then delivering against them. My second role as a managing director of WIC, which is a business unit within Woolworths Group, is to almost meet the demand from my first role, to kind of find the talent and the capabilities and the IP and build the IP to deliver against that agenda. So partly the demand, what should we be working on, and partly the supply of how do we actually solve those problems. So it's a very fun gig.
It sounds wonderful, and I can't believe it's already been 18 months since you've graduated. But just digging a bit deeper in terms of your day job, I suppose. I mean, data science and advanced analytics are, of course, core of what you do. But you've also made a lot of investments in this area since your arrival, and maybe you can speak a little bit about the importance of the investment for Woolworths, but also how it's changing how we do business in retail in general.
No, it's a probably the starting point is the change in how we run retail as a business. When we set up the business unit 18 months ago, we spent a lot of time thinking about, what was the purpose, why did we get created, and who we are and what do we want to do. And a lot of conversations within the business with different key business leaders, but also within the team that became the original team that set up the whole thing. And
Mhm.
we came back with a purpose statement, and which is basically, it says, we unlock the power of data to reimagine retail, which
Mm.
has two big anchors to it. One is unlock the power of data, because retailers are, amongst businesses, one of the richest and deepest in the amount of data we generate every single day, with every transaction that happens in the POS, with the member
Mm.
data, with all the products that move in supply chain in the trucks. There is just so much data. And I'm fortunate that with the investments that Woolworths made, actually even before, around putting all our data onto cloud, means that data is easily available, it's clean, it's accessible for the data scientists to work on. So we've done the hard yards in some ways.
Okay.
So that's been a big investment. But to me, the unlock the power of data is a big part of what we do. More importantly, and what got me excited, Mickey, when I first took on the role, is the ability to reimagine retail.
Mm.
Of course, there are always things that you can do incrementally to improve, refine, tweak things here and there. But I believe, and comes from my experience in my time at BCG as a consumer and retail partner for many years, is retail is going through a transformation that it hasn't gone through in a long time. I would argue that the last major transformation in retail, disruption almost, was when online started. This was in the 90s. Since then, it's been pretty much the same business. We are at the cusp of the next revolution of retail, where all major processes in retail, be it how we range products, how we promote, how we price, how we manage our stores, everything will be driven by data and tools different from how decisions have been made before. So I feel quite fortunate to have an opportunity to reimagine retail, hopefully not just for Woolworths, but then as an industry.
Fantastic. That sounds so exciting. Um, just shifting gears a little bit in terms of your leadership learnings and lessons, I guess. As exciting as your days and nights are at Woolworths, I'm sure not all days are perfect. And whether at Woolworths or at your career at BCG, I'm sure you've had those challenging leadership moments. I wonder if you could share a story or two about those challenging moments. Perhaps you can call them failures, I suppose, if you've had any, and what you took away from that.
My philosophy in this, and it'll sound very trite, but I'll still say it, is there is nothing called a failure in these situations.
Oh,
There
okay.
is everything is a learning opportunity. I know it sounds incredibly trite, right? But it genuinely is, because I've thought about it a few times, and while one might wonder about the fork in the road, what would have happened if I'd gone left instead of right, those are folks, versus everything else is actually a got something right, great, didn't get something right, you learn from it and got it right the next time. Probably the ones that I can think about most is people related. When someone left the business that I wish had not, or when we thought that someone there was an opportunity to create a role for someone and we did not. So it's more people related, where I feel sometimes that I wish that I'd done things differently, and created the right opportunity for the right people. And that learning, I think, is carrying over at a much bigger scale now for me, where, you know, one of the pieces of advice I got from someone when starting the new role was, your team is never complete. It's always work in progress. There's always something going on. And don't be worried about failures, if at all, in that regard, but think of it as a continuous improvement process.
I like that philosophy. I will have those words in mind when I have that next learning moment. So thank you. Another one of the themes of the world right now beyond data and analytics is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know during your time at BCG, you were a passionate champion for that. And I'm sure you are at Woolworths as well. I don't think the world feels like we're quite there yet. And I would love to hear your thoughts about the importance of DE&I and how to accelerate it, how to make and continue to make more progress.
No, it is something that I'm very passionate about, Mickey, as you know, and it's something that I think in some ways imbibed at BCG, which in some ways to me is the epitome of diversity of thought. That it doesn't
Mm.
matter who you are, where you come from, what tenure you are, what role you've done before. If you've got an idea, the diversity of thought and the case team meeting being the unit of that where it all comes to life is, I've
Yes.
learned it. I've learned it from the best, where I've been given that opportunity to voice my opinion and my ideas, and then over time I've learned how to do the same with others. Right. So it's very classic BCG in many ways. It's very deeply embedded in who we are. The To me, the next evolution of that is, particularly for me now working in a very large corporation, is how do you think about it and how do you make it real? And I would think there are
Mm.
three thematics there. First is, diversity is not a unidimensional word or a unidimensional theme. Sometimes we can
Right.
get caught up with one kind of diversity, but there is, whether it is gender diversity, whether it is diversity of race and culture and language, whether it is diversity around abilities, and people with different abilities, whether it is diversity in Australia, actually, in the country where I live today, pretty significant discussion and dialogue around the indigenous population. of Australia, and the
Yes.
diversity that
Yes.
we need to make sure is represented. So there are multiple facets of diversity. When you the intersectionality of it makes it very complex sometimes, but I think it's important not to get so caught up in one that we ignore the others. That's the first, I would say, thematic that that comes to mind when we talk diversity. The second is, I would say, and someone actually, I'm quoting someone else in saying, diversity is when someone gets invited to the party. Inclusion is
Hmm.
when they're asked for a dance. So diversity is a great goal, but is insufficient for what we're really trying to do. And making people feel included in everything that we do is almost as important, if not more important. So that's the second thematic about it. It's not just about diversity, but also around the inclusion that comes with it. Of course, there's always the need for initiatives and champions and so on and so forth. But the true diversity and inclusion is a bottom up view and not a top down view. So I recently had an opportunity. I'm the champion for Woolworths Group on cultural diversity. But I had an opportunity to get like 12 people from very different cultural backgrounds together in a room of different seniorities, different experiences, everyone from a store manager to a lawyer to someone who is a commercial manager. And just the richness of the conversation from that crew and the passion that comes through is so strong that I feel all I had to do was then sit back and watch the fun and let them do great things.
Mm,
So, as much as we need initiatives and champions and so on in a top down way, the only way I think to solve the challenges that we have in diversity and inclusion is a bottom up way. And all we need to do is create the space for our teams to do that.
fantastic. So I can't believe the time is zipping by, but I have my final question for you today, which is what is the best piece of career advice you've received?
Many, many, and it's a long list. And some of it would have been, at that time, I would have seen it as feedback and not career advice. But, I remember, this was probably in my second or third year as an MDP, and it was a cracking year. I was in Mumbai at the time, and I think we converted like three material clients, multi-year partnerships, really strong revenue coming through, and fairly early in my MDP career. And I went to at that time Janmay, who was the system leader of India at the time, and this was the end of year feedback. And I walked in, chest all swelled up, like Janmay is going to pat me on the back and tell me what a brilliant job I have done, blah blah blah. So I walked in, pretty happy going into that conversation. And Janmay's question to me was, yeah, all that's great. Do you think you built a business? I was like, of course I built a business. Just look at the revenue, Janmay. Look at the kind quality of the work we're going to be doing, blah blah blah. And he was like, do you really think clients is what builds a business? I was like, yeah, of course. That's what we are about. We are a client serving business. And he was like, look, actually, it's the teams that build the business. Do you have the team who can do this if you're not around? Do you have the team who can take it to the next level? Do you have the team which will find the next three clients? Have you built the team? Because if you haven't, then you haven't built a business. All you've got is revenue. And that was a pretty humbling conversation at the time. And I realized that we did not. And the next several years went into then building a team, and it takes years to do that.
Mm,
And that's been, frankly, probably the
yes.
biggest learning piece of advice, and I've carried that through, hopefully, in my new role as well.
Thank you. Sounds like a great John May learning moment. All of us have benefited from his wisdom as well. I think that wraps up our discussion today. Amitabh, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And I look forward to staying in touch. And I look forward to having another session of BCG alumni leaders in the coming weeks. Thank you, everyone. Take care.